Today I will be talking about a study led by the late Roland Griffiths, who passed away in October this year. Roland was a true pioneer in psychedelic research, started his work on psychedelic drugs in 1999 and made significant contributions to the field of psychedelic research in general. One could say that he played an important role in launching the therapeutic use of psychedelics into the consciousness of the mainstream research community in the past 2 decades or so. Now, the study in question is called Single-Dose Psilocybin Treatment for Major Depressive Disorder, a randomized clinical trial. This study is a phase 2 trial involving 11 research sites across the US. The study participants were carefully screened and assessed for eligibility, as is typical for these kinds of trials. Out of 1,529 potential participants, 104 were ultimately selected and randomized into 2 groups to receive either a single dose of 25 milligrams of psilocybin, which is, by the way, the active ingredient of the so-called magic mushrooms, or active placebo, which was a 100 milligram dose of niacin. Both treatment groups received psychological support. And unlike some of the other trials, the patients in this study had relatively low rates of treatment-resistant depression. Something to note here is that niacin is quite an interesting choice of placebo, since it's not really a psychoactive drug, but it produces a set of kind of interesting effects that could be interpreted as an active drug by the trial participants. It can produce a short-lasting increase in blood flow accompanied by, for example, a rushing sensation, warmth and relaxation, thus really making the patients feel that they have received something that has an actual effect instead of a completely, pure placebo. Moreover, this study used a randomized, multi-blinded design over a relatively long period of observation, which gives interesting insights into the duration of the therapeutic effects of psilocybin. Now, the results indicate that psilocybin treatment was associated with a significant decrease in the Montgomery-Åsberg depression rating scale when compared to niacin treatment from baseline to day 43, which was the primary outcome measure, and from baseline to day 8, which was the secondary outcome measure. For those of you who are not familiar with the primary and secondary outcomes, they are simply predefined trial outcome measures used to evaluate the effectiveness of the treatment. These are also something that the researchers should stick to when reporting the results of the study. This is important because clinical trials can gather a lot of data, and for example, you could measure the change in depression score on every day between day 1 and let's say day 50, and just take and report the day that supports your hypothesis. These outcome measures require the researchers to set a clear outcome and criteria for determining the treatment effect, which also focuses the statistical analysis to that particular outcome instead of many exploratory analyses or the temptation of p-hacking. Now, if you look at the graph here, you can see that there is a clear separation between the treatment groups, with a robust effect of psilocybin treatment in decreasing the depression score. The graph below also shows individual responses in depressive symptom reduction, demonstrating that while some patients also had a significant response to niacin, there were much more highly responding patients in the psilocybin group. Other outcomes were change in the Sheehan Disability Scale score from baseline to day 43 and the Mother's Defined Sustained Response and Remission. Psilocybin treatment significantly reduced this disability scale score compared with niacin. Finally, more participants receiving psilocybin had sustained response, but not remission compared to those receiving the placebo niacin. No serious treatment emergent adverse effects were reported in this trial, but overall psilocybin was associated with a higher rate of adverse events and a higher rate of severe adverse events. These adverse events were mostly things like headache and nausea. And interestingly, 3 patients in the psilocybin group also reported visual perceptual effects after the dosing day, but these resolved by the study conclusion. Unlike some other studies, there was no indication of clinically confirmed increased suicidal ideation. Again, like with many of the other trials of psychedelics or psilocybin in particular, there are quite a few limitations related to the interpretation of these results. But I will only name a few of the points here, which were also brought up by the authors of the study. First, the successfulness of the blinding was not assessed. And as the authors note, it remains likely that the acute effects of psilocybin produced some degree of functional unblinding that may have contributed to the observed effect in the psilocybin group, while also increasing the dropout rate of the niacin-treated participants. Second, while the use of niacin as an active placebo is certainly an improvement to a completely inactive placebo, the placebo response rates in this study were smaller than observed with, for example, daily placebo pills in previous studies, and this may have inflated the placebo-adjusted effect size compared to studies of, standard antidepressants in patients with depression. Third, the study demonstrated a long-lasting antidepressant effect, which continued up to 6 weeks following treatment. Whether this is due to the low rate of treatment resistance in the patient population or some other factor remains unknown. Moreover, one earlier study reported that the effects of psilocybin started to wane at the 12 weeks time point, and this was a study of treatment-resistant depression. But the results of this study do not really allow inferences to be drawn regarding the sustained effects past the final 43-day or 6 weeks time point. Obviously, large-scale long-term studies are warranted to further investigate the duration of the therapeutic effects of psilocybin in treating depression. And finally, while I think this study was very nicely designed and I don't have any doubts about the quality of the results, just to take a look at the conflicts of interest disclosure section. I mean, wow, they take a whole page. At least I can tell that that's very thorough reporting. So in conclusion, this study adds to the existing literature of the therapeutic effects of psilocybin in treating depression. It appears that in this population of patients, the effects appear to be rather robust and relatively long-lasting, which is of course of significant clinical importance. With that being said, at least my personal opinion of the effectiveness of psilocybin for treatment of depression is ever increasing with these new clinical trials robustly presenting these antidepressant effects. And I think that this trial will also be an important part for paving the way of these psychedelic treatments to actually reach common clinical use in the hopefully near future. Let me know what you think about this study in the comments down below, and also please remember to press like and subscribe for future neuropharmacology content. I'm working on a lot of stuff at the moment, so please be patient, but ultimately I promise you there's multiple videos coming out hopefully soonish in the near future. Thanks for watching, and until next time.